Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. You join myself and Paul again for another weekly preview show. Such is the state, I suppose, really of the calendar from a sort of British perspective. We have no fights in Britain this weekend. We've got two fights we're doing this week. We are in Mexico. We are in the US, specifically in San Antonio, Texas. We have regular title actions, depending on what you make of that belt, and we have another intriguing fight to go through it with you. Without obviously looking to spoil either of those fights with spoilers early on, I'm going to pass over to Paul straight away. He's going to talk us through, I think, the bigger, we agree, both he and I, the bigger of the two fights, after a little comment telling you all how he's doing. Paul, how are you, sir? And please take us through that first fight.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate it. It's always good to be back on doing a preview video with yourself. Highlight of the week for me. But yeah, as you mentioned, we're going to head to San Antonio first, where probably, yeah, definitely the bigger of the two fights we're going to look at here. AT&T Center in San Antonio, where the WBA regular world welterweight title is on the line. We are, of course, talking about the Eimantas Stanionis fight against Vergil Ortiz. Vergil Ortiz obviously become a household name, really, in boxing circles now. Just kind of one of the hottest prospects in world boxing. And despite he's only 25 still. So yeah, quick tail of the tape as we always do. Ortiz is 19-0, and with all 19 wins coming by way of knockout. Orthodox fighter, 5'10", and has a 70-inch reach. Stanionis is also undefeated. He's 14-0 with 9 stoppages. So, credible puncher in his own right from Lithuania. He's also orthodox. He's 2 inches smaller at 5'8", and his 2-inch reach disadvantage as well with a 68-inch reach. He is obviously the current WBA regular world welterweight champion. So he is the champion heading into this fight. Ortiz is obviously the challenger, despite being the overriding favourite, I assume. You look at both of these men here, and we'll start with Vergil Ortiz. I think kind of doesn't really need much of an introduction. He is a superb fighter. Lots of talk about him being the future of boxing when the likes of Canelo and everyone has retired. His last 4 wins, obviously, are obviously all KOs, as are all 19 of his career victories. But you look at the names, and it's kind of he's stepped up the level. Definitely, he's got Sam Vargas, Mo Hooker, Kavalauskas, and Michael McKinson all KO victories. And then Stanionis, on the other hand, won the belt last time out with a split decision win over Butayev. He's got, I don't know whether it's fair to say maybe Stanionis is a bit of an unknown quantity as such. Obviously, we know the hype around Ortiz, but Stanionis, despite still being undefeated and being the regular world champion here, I think he's definitely less known in boxing circles. My kind of question for you, Elliot, really is obviously I'm going to come. I would like you to give me a prediction for this fight and how you think it plays out. But first, where do you see Vergil Ortiz Jr. in the welterweight rankings right now? Obviously, you've got your Crawfords, your Spences, your Jaron Ennis, your Conor Benns. Where do you put Vergil Ortiz Jr. in your welterweight rankings?
First of all, Paul, thank you very much for what is another eloquent and I suppose, to be honest with you, learning breakdown there. Like you said, obviously Stanionis may not be known obviously within boxing circles, and you give us a thorough run through there. I think, I mean, these guys obviously are like the top five on the ring rankings at the moment. I think, to be honest with you, Ortiz is sitting just outside, isn't he? The triumvirate of Spence, Crawford, and Ennis. And to be honest with you, that's where I'd put him. I think he beats, to be honest, any of the other guys beneath him. So Evan Eason. Don't want to talk about Conor Benn, but Conor Benn, I'd love to see get in there just to get slapped around. But I think, I'd have Ortiz up there. And like you say as well, like obviously with a glittering career, 19 wins, all by KO. My prediction here, unfortunately, for Stanionis is another victory for Ortiz Jr. by KO. I just feel like, having watched him, you're completely right, actually, to draw on both of the comparative CVs and the guys that obviously Ortiz Jr. has beaten recently, and he tends to sort of a lot of his knockdowns and his KOs tend to sort of come mid to late, or like sort of 6 to 8, 6 to 9 rounds. Frankly, I could see the similar thing sort of happening here. I mean, I know Stanionis hasn't been stopped, so obviously there'll be that, I suppose, that extra motivation to maintain that, and also fighters that don't tend to get stopped the first time tend to obviously dig in a bit deeper, don't they? So I can actually see, to be honest, the sort of mid to sort of late stoppage again. But to be honest with you, I see nothing other than Ortiz Jr. winning this by stoppage, frankly, in 20-0, 20 stoppages is how I see this playing out.
I concur entirely, Elliot. I think 20-0, 20 KOs by, Sunday morning. I think that's definitely going to be the case here. How he does it, yeah, knockout. I'm going to go, actually, you know what? I'm going to go a little bit earlier than you. I think I'm maybe going to go around 3, 4, 5. round that mark. I think it'll come in the first half of the fight for Vergil Ortiz. Don't ask me why. I just get a feeling that he's going to put on a hell of a show this weekend. And yeah, Stanionis is a credible opponent, good fighter, but Vergil Ortiz is the real deal, I think, in my opinion. And I kind of have to agree with the question I posed to you at the beginning. You know, he probably is top five, definitely top 10, arguably top five, but obviously just behind the likes of Crawford and Spence. Some people may even have him ahead of Ennis, which is fair enough. But yeah, he's definitely up there as one of the best welterweights in the world. We could probably talk about that fight for a good bit longer in the welterweight landscape, but unfortunately don't have time for that. But we do have time for another fight, with another big name actually. As you said, we're in Mexico. Take it away, Elliot.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. We are indeed. We are in Mexico. We are talking about the fight between Luis Nery and Froilan Saludar. I seem to obviously be better at pronouncing these sort of Mexican names than I am. You know, other names, South American names than I am. Some of the sort of Eastern Bloc countries. But even though, to be fair to him, Saludar is a Filipino. But we're going into this fight, as Paul has said there. We'd like to do a quick tale of the tape of sort of breakdown before we go into predictions and general reflections. So I'll start off with Luis Nery. He's a guy obviously who's 28 years old. 5'5" with 65-inch reach advantage and a record of 34-1 with 26 KOs. Carries obvious power, given that statistic. His one loss KO stoppage actually lost against Brandon Figueroa. That was back in 2021. But he comes into this fight with an SD victory over Carlos Castro, stoppage victories over Carmona and Javi Nisan. Don't count me on that pronunciation either. But other names, I suppose, on his record that you say were decent was that victory over sort of Arroyo. That was back in 2019. But I suppose we're down at super bantamweight here, and some of these guys, I suppose, are less well known to boxing fans than obviously the higher weight. So you can look through it and say that really, despite being obviously a very talented fighter, I suppose, with a lot of fights under his belt, I think there's obviously an argument that for a crossover audience, Nery needs obviously maybe some bigger names on that record, given where we currently are. But I'm going to go over now to Saludar, who is a guy who's 33-6 and obviously one draw. So yeah, 23 KOs. So obviously also carries power based off that. 3 KO losses out of his 6 losses. 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. I suppose names that people I suppose would be familiar with. You've got Andrew Maloney on the record, which was a UD loss back in 2021. Other names, to be honest with you, from a sort of, I suppose, crossover or more casual boxing fandom, won't necessarily know too many of them. But he comes into this contest with a TKO victory over Crimson Oyamea, which is a guy who's got a 24, 26, and 5 record. So, to be perfectly honest, you're looking at both these guys. You're looking at it and you're going Nery. I mean, Paul, you're the betting man again, but you're looking at it going Luis Nery really will be the favourite in this contest. Obviously, like I said previously, he's a guy who has challenged for world honours before. In that loss to Brandon Figueroa, has also held though the WBC and WBO, Super Bantam Silver and Intercontinental titles. So is kind of used to winning. Paul, my question to you really here is: I mean, we're looking at both guys' records. You'd expect this fight to possibly finish early, expect it to be a KO either which way. And are you favouring this as a routine victory for Luis Nery, or do you think that there's somehow Saludar can kind of show some sort of durability and cause him problems?
Thanks for that eloquent breakdown, Elliot. As always, I think being blunt and getting straight to the point, I think that Luis Nery needs to put on an emphatic performance here and win by knockout early. To be perfectly honest with you, if he's not, I don't think I would be underwhelmed if this fight went past 5-6 rounds. To be quite honest with you, I think if Luis Nery, wants to become a 2-time world champion and wants to throw his name into the hat for potentially the winner of Inoue Fulton or fighting the likes of Tapales, someone like that, I think he needs to put on a statement here. Obviously his only loss, as you mentioned, was to Figueroa, which is no mean feat. Figueroa is an elite fighter now, even up at featherweight is an elite fighter, arguably one of the best in the division. But for me, this is just a keep busy fight. Saludar had been stopped 3 times against fighters who don't have as big a punch really on them, at least on paper, as Luis Nery. So for me, yeah, Luis Nery, this is kind of a keep busy fight. Now he needs to put on a massive performance here. I think if he doesn't, and he kind of labours to a late stoppage or those points, you're like, does this guy have it anymore? In my opinion, with all due respect to Saludar, I don't think they're on the same level. There's level between these boys, and I think Luis Nery, if he is still the fighter that we all think he is, he's still only 28. Still got a bright future ahead of him, but he needs to be getting this man out of there emphatically, in my opinion, before then obviously challenging for world honours maybe again at 122 pounds later this year or early next year.
No, Paul, honest, Paul, you're spot on there, and I totally agree with you. I think just tick this one out of the way. Like you said, the names you mentioned there, so you've got Fulton anyway coming up as well, like Tapales, Medvedev, all these other sort of guys that you can throw around sort of in that division that you kind of want to see him fight. Even Casemiro, anyone sort of that's either more well known, frankly, than this. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think he needs an emphatic victory. I'd be very surprised if it went sort of second half. I'd expect it to be sort of maybe early, middle, max. But Paul, you know what that means. We have come through the two of these fights here successfully ourselves without too many knockout blows between us. And we, as guys, as we always say every week, if you think we're talking sense, let us know. If you think we're not talking sense, you've got some negative bias, let us know as well. We'll have upcoming content on the channel. We'll have interviews with fighters. We'll have sort of reviews of these fights and events as well. As well as other events, we'll have guys at shows, etc., that obviously not at these shows, but we'll maybe sort of smaller British shows that's maybe taking place as well. Paul, I'd like to say thank you to you as always. Charmed me again this week and look forward to speaking to you next week. Is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers, or are you happy to wish them goodbye?
Yeah, thanks, mate. I enjoyed that as always. As you, I'll just like to echo what you said about the engagement. Let us know what if you agree or disagree. I had someone last week saying that I have more failed predictions than David Hay. So brilliant. Keep it coming. We'll love all type of interaction. But yeah, no. On a serious note, cheers, guys, everyone for watching, and yeah. I'll speak to you again next week, Elliot.
Thank you very much, Paul. And again, thank you very much, guys, for watching.